Coming up on Network Africa, Kenya's election too close to call as provisional results suggest a tight presidential race. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken concerned about reports of Rwanda backing M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Plus, the World Food Programme, UNHCR, and Ethiopian government appeal for $73 million to provide food rations to over 750,000 refugees. Hello and welcome to the program. Today, I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin in Kenya, where citizens are awaiting the results of Tuesday's general election, even as provisional results suggest a tight presidential race between Deputy President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. With more than 90% of results posted from thousands of individual districts, local tallies of the raw data suggest little separates the pair. However, officials say it could take several days before the official result is known.
I'm seeing everything is going on well, and we want just peace to prevail in this particular area because it was treated as a hotspot, and we don't want such kind of a thing. And what we want to say is that whoever will win, let him carry the baton.
For now, people have gotten used to such panic. Unlike in the previous years, business is going on as usual. As you can see, there are quite a number of people going on with their business because one thing that we need to know is that these politicians are friends, and the common people, as we talk now, cannot in any way try to harm his or her colleague.
Mali has received 5 military jets and a combat helicopter from Russia, a close ally in its fight against a jihadist insurgency. At a ceremony for the handover, Defense Minister Sadio Kamara paid tribute to what he called Mali's win-win partnership with Russia. The Malian presidency tweeted images of the military equipment. Well, ties between the two countries have grown since a coup in May last year. That second military takeover in just over a year, plus Mali's decision to hire Russian mercenaries, were key reasons why France chose to pull its troops out of Mali. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Washington is very concerned about what he called credible reports that Rwanda has provided support to rebels in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. Mr. Blinken was speaking in the Congolese capital, Kinshasa, and he called on all parties to halt any cooperation with the M23 rebel group. The conflict in eastern DRC was a key focus during his meeting with President Felix Tshisekedi on Tuesday. M23 controls a large swath of territory in the region, and its attacks have displaced tens of thousands of people.
We are very concerned by credible reports that Rwanda has provided support to M23. We call on all parties in the region to stop any support or cooperation with M23, or for that matter, any other non-state armed group. That is essential to actually bringing peace and security to the region. We talked about reforms to the mining sector. We'll continue to work together to ensure that investments in the DRC support best practices. The companies are engaged in a race to the top on environmental protections, labor rights, good governance, and transparency, not a race to the bottom that ends up hurting workers, hurting the environment, fueling armed conflict. Back at COP26, the world made a collective pledge of $1.5 billion to support the Congo Basin's forest. So in that context, we had concerns about the announcement of the auction of these oil and gas exploration blocks. some of the blocks infringe on sensitive rainforest and peatland areas, including in the Virunga National Park and Solonga National Park. But what you just heard from the foreign minister is exactly what the president said to me, a commitment to make sure that DRC is a solution country when it comes to protecting the environment and combating climate change. We agreed to work together to establish a formal working group to help Congolese achieve a balanced approach to responsible development of the country's resources that contributes to Congo's economic growth and to generating jobs.
The Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security of the African Union Commission, Bankole Adeoye, is warning that the threat of violent extremism and terrorism continues to loom over the continent. Addressing a Security Council open debate on peace and security in Africa, capacity building for sustaining peace, Mr. Adeoye says the world must redouble its efforts at developing capacities that would sustain peace.
The threats of violent extremism and terrorism continue to loom heavily over the continent and the world at large. We have witnessed popular uprisings with some metamorphosing into what is beginning to look like intractable efforts. Old conflicts are assuming new dimensions, fueled and sustained by new insecurity trends. Against this global and continental context, we must redouble our efforts at developing our capacities to sustain peace.
It has been 50 years since African governments, against the backdrop of hard-fought independence, started asking for the return of looted objects. Despite celebratory press coverage on returns and Western curators' recent commitments to decolonize museums, well, very few items have been physically repatriated. Back in February, Nigeria welcomed back to Benin City just 2 statues out of more than 3,000 Benin bronzes, a collection of sacred works made from ivory, bronze, and wood still held mostly in Europe. Well, as a result of violent plunder over the centuries, Europe, more than any other region in the world, including Africa, holds the largest collection of ancient artifacts, African artifacts. Well, Belgium's Royal Museum for Central Africa alone has 180,000 objects. Germany's Ethnological Museum has 75,000. France's Squire Branly Museum has almost 70,000. The British Museum has 73,000. And the Netherlands National Museum of World Cultures has 66,000. Well, joining us now for more discussions on this is Enotie Ogbebo, a multidisciplinary artist, creative director at the Edo Global Art Foundation. He's also an artist in residence at the Cambridge University, United Kingdom. He joins us from our Benin studios. Thank you so much, Mr. Ogbebo, for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Well, on Sunday, the Horniman Museum in London announced it will be returning 72 artifacts to Nigeria. Now, this is not the first of its kind. I mean, repatriations like this, we've had some in February when some artifacts were returned. Now, other countries also have received their monuments from their colonial masters. Why do you think these artifacts are being repatriated now?
Thank you. Well, sometimes you could say an idea whose time has come will be stopped. The world has become more sensitive, more intertwined, and therefore there's more information flow. And, a lot of efforts have been made in the past, starting from the 1930s till present date by various personalities, by Eweka, by Kenzwa II, by Eweka II, by Kenzwa II, all the way to Iridiawa and Aegwari and lots of chiefs and Inogies and lots of activists like myself who have consistently lending our voices to the return of these artifacts. And then also the global dimension, also triggered by the Black Lives Matter movement, where uh, across that everything that affects Black life, be it culture, whatever it's politics, matters. And so, with all this clamoring, and then also, of course, with the internet, there's more information flow. More people get reacting, calling for the return of these artifacts. Not also forget that 190% of cultural artifacts from Africa in European museums. So, with this type of imbalanced appropriation of cultural artifacts, will people get more awareness and more knowledge, and they keep asking for these artifacts to be returned. The National Commission for Museum and Monument, the state government, the Palace of Benin, have all been clamoring and writing official letters, Minister of Culture. And so I think all of this has impacted on the shift, you know. And then amongst the people themselves, new generation, the millennials and the Gen Z, Europe and America, when they go to these museums, this feedback I got from the museum directors and curators themselves. When these young millennials, Gen Z, come to the museums, in the visitors book, what they always write is, the question they ask is, why are these things here? These things don't belong here. They don't belong to us. Why are they here? Why are they not back in their home countries? So even amongst the European new generation, there is an awareness, there's more awareness of the history of how these works were acquired. And the looting, the violence, which led to the acquisition of these works through colonialism, through racism, has led to more sensitization. People are more aware. So they're like, we need to decolonize our museums. We need to make past right. You can't come to people's communities and places and plunder it, loot it, burn it down, kill people, and then take away their cultural artifacts. And then impose colonialism. This has resulted in the situation where the history was not taught in schools over here. So lots of us did not even know initially about the artifacts, the sheer quantity and numbers of artifacts that were taken away, and the importance and relevance of these artifacts until we're privileged to begin to visit some of these and to
Mr.
get
Weber?
involved in the art.
Yes, you've just touched on my next question. Visits to museums used to be a learning experience, you know, for Nigerians of school age. They were a great way to learn about culture and history. But with limitations to this aspect of learning, do you fear a huge part of our history could remain unknown?
Yeah, the thing is, in the first instance, history was not taught in our schools. And in the rare cases where it was taught, it was mostly European history. And so a lot of people have grown up ignorant of this reality. But we have about 52 more museums, owned museums, federally owned museums in Nigeria, and a few privately owned museums here and there. In Nigeria, a lot of these museums are run as parastatals and agencies or appendages of the Federal Civil Service. So, and a lot of the infrastructure was developed during the colonial and post-colonial era. And so we have a situation where, like everything else in Nigeria, the infrastructure is crumbling, workers are not well paid, they're not exposed and trained properly, not being updated, with trainings and all of that. So we have a situation where we have museums, we have a lot of collection, but only 5% of this collection we put on display because its spaces are limited. A lot of it ends up remaining in vaults. So people go to these museums, they just see 5% of what they actually have. So we need more museums, we need more spaces,
All right.
space, what we even have already in Nigeria. See, what we already have in the museums in Nigeria to take in their possession. When these other works begin to come from Europe, and America and all over the world, we need the proper infrastructure.
To be able to, yes, to be able to
display
preserve
them,
them.
to store them, to preserve them, to do all of that.
Indeed. I mean, these are fragile pieces of our history, so they need to be preserved. Thank you so much. That's the much we can take at this time. But thank you once again, Mr. Enotie Ogbebo, the Creative Director at the Edo Global Art Foundation. Thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Still ahead on the program. Focus on skin donations in South Africa as the country marks the National Organ Donation Awareness Month. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. The UN's World Food Programme and UNHCR, United Nations Refugee Agency, with the Ethiopian government appealing for $73 million to provide food rations to more than 750,000 refugees in Ethiopia over the next 6 months. Due to protracted funding shortfalls, the World Food Programme has already been forced to cut rations for 750,000 registered refugees living in 22 camps and 5 sites in hosting communities in Afar, Amhara, Benishangul Guzum, Gambela, Somali, and Tigray regions of Ethiopia. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has denied endorsing the presidential bid of Nigerian politician Peter Obi following claims on social media in Ghana and Nigeria. President Akufo-Addo describes the claims as completely false and mischievous, adding that Ghana and Nigeria boast of decades of cordial, strong and brotherly relations. Therefore, he will not be the one to interfere in the internal affairs of politics of in Nigeria. Peter Obi is vying for the presidency on a Labour Party ticket, going against the ruling All Progressives Congress Party's Bola Tinubu and the People's Democratic Party's Atiku Abubakar. Nigerians will elect a new president in February 2023. In the meantime, as the 2023 Nigerian general election beckons, former President Olusegun Obasanjo has lent his voice in support of diaspora voting. He sees no reason why the National Assembly cannot amend the relevant laws to make it possible for Nigerians in the diaspora to vote. The former president stated this when the chairman CEO of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, Abike Dabiri Erewa, and some members of staff of the commission paid him a courtesy visit in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. August is National Organ Donation Awareness Month in South Africa, and while awareness on the donation of the usual organs like heart and kidney are prominent, not too much is said about the skin, and we are not talking the regular skin grafting. Well, South Africa has a dire shortage of skin donation to treat burn victims, and with the world battling the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic, the Center for Tissue Engineering says it's been struggling to provide tissue to hospitals in need. Well, in this next report, we would like to warn our sensitive viewers on some parts of the content.
Medical experts say burn victims can heal quicker through skin or tissue donation. Unlike other organs like heart, kidney and blood donation being common, skin, on the other hand, is not easily accessible to treat burn victims.
With tissue donation, it's slightly different from organ donation in a sense that it depends on the circumstances of death.
South Africa's only tissue bank at the Tshwane University of Technology in Pretoria says it struggles to provide to hospitals owing to low number of donors.
Oh, you know what? We've been really hit very badly, especially in the beginning when it was the hard lockdown, because we couldn't get to people, speak to people, keeping in mind that we speak to families after somebody passed away. And with COVID, we are not allowed to take donations from COVID-positive patients as well. So there might have been a lot of deaths, but it was unsuitable if possible donors.
We need help from the general public to donate and to also spread the word, but we also need help from hospitals themselves to do their part in educating the public.
Gerano Jacobs from Cape Town, South Africa, suffered severe burns when he was just 8 years old. He spent 6 months at the Red Cross Memorial Hospital in Cape Town.
He was admitted to Red Cross Hospital with 60% burns in January 2018. If you can think about 60% burns, there was not even a possibility that he would have been alive if it hasn't been for somebody that was willing to donate their skin so that he was be able to live.
A walking miracle, as his adoptive parents referred to him, Gerano is among lucky survivors who found donors. The skin on his back was grafted, but it was not enough.
So I had a couple of laser surgeries after that, and his scars has improved significantly. Even what you see today is much better than when he initially came.
In 2018, the Red Cross Hospital had to import skin from the United States of America to treat similar cases. According to burns charity Avila Foundation, there are about 1.6 million people a year who suffer burn wounds in South Africa. But a shortage of donors leaves mostly adults out, as a single donor can cover close to 3 children.
So we only take like a thin layer of skin, the top layer of skin, which is less than 1 millimeter thin, and then it's shaved off. There's no bleeding, there's no exposure of muscles or blood squirting out, because these are all the fears that people have, that okay, now my loved one is going to donate skin, and what is the body going to look like? Is it going to just be muscles exposed? No.
Experts say apart from ignorance, religion or cultural beliefs affect views and decisions on organ and tissue donation.
I think there's some religion concerns of some cultures as well, but not as much as we have in the African culture, because normally they go back to, but my culture says no.
For others who like very ritually, it's very difficult for them to give a part of their bodies because of it still has cells, so that it has that smell of that certain person's surname. So they have people who look after them like ancestors. If he wants to talk to that person, but now the spirit is here, but the body is busy roaming around, then it's where it becomes a problem.
As a black woman, I find it hard to believe that, your ancestors would be against helping another human being, because our culture is ingrained around the issue of Ubuntu and helping others.
If someone passes away, some scholars, they say that it is allowed, but not the skin of the person. Maybe some organs, like heart, something like that. But many scholars, they rejected that.
Flesh has nothing to do with your spirit. You understand that? So when we go to heaven, we do not go with our flesh. The flesh stays here because it was found here.
As the spiritual debate rages, the prayer is not to be the one in need. South Africa's Tissue Center says its doors remain open and hopefully more donors will emerge for life-saving skin donation.
Well, we end the program in Egypt, where 5 students from the American University in Cairo have developed a non-invasive glucose monitoring device for diabetic patients.
5 Egyptian students have won first place in a global healthcare design competition for a non-invasive glucose monitoring device. The students from the American University in Cairo say the GlucoLip aims to serve as a substitute for finger pricking or other invasive blood tests, potentially influencing lives of millions of diabetics around the world. One of the graduated students, Saif Shautak, says the device is like the oximeter, which monitors oxygen levels in the blood.
The person who wants glucose levels checked should place his finger in the device and press the button or use the application that is connected to the device via Bluetooth. Once you press the button, the device starts to check glucose levels in the blood. Then figures are shown on the device and the application.
Maha Shatta says when the team heard of the competition, they had already finished working on the device and had a prototype.
When we heard of the competition, we applied immediately, and thank God we managed to get awarded out of the 120 teams participating in the competition.
Students say they hope more tests will be done on the device to release it into the market.
We think in the coming years, the most important thing is to work more on the device to improve its accuracy further, so then we can think about offering it to the market. But before that, and because this is a medical device, we should make sure that the accuracy is high enough for anyone to safely use.
The device uses near-infrared spectroscopy and connects to a mobile app, allowing easier and more convenient monitoring of blood glucose levels. The device won first place in 2022 Johns Hopkins Healthcare Design Competition in the digital health track.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Nayo Olarinde.